Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m., actually 6:02. I'm going to call this city council meeting to order. I will go through the roll call here. Councilman Lavaca,
Present.
Councilman Loy, Councilman Cock,
Present.
Councilwoman Pedersen,
Present.
Councilwoman Kesty,
Present.
and Councilman Henderson.
Here.
All right. No unfinished business tonight. We do have 3 items on the new business, and I'm going to turn this over. We're going to start with you, Nathan, to begin with. Okay, very good, very good.
Good evening, council. On? No, okay. So, good evening, council. A little bit tonight, we're going to start, Nathan has a presentation about swapping the ball fields at Winnie Hauser and Riverfront, and talk a little bit about Phase 3 of Olmsted, which is things like the park equipment and pickleball courts and things like that. Part of these are, were pretty common in the council goal responses from council that we got, and we've talked about them for quite some time now as well. And this is kind of leading into our proposal to maybe get those done this year. We'll go more into that later. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the report I got from staff is that, and I'm starting with some public project fundamental type things, framework that we work under, but also that there's interest of the council to focus on sidewalk gaps and improvements and things like that with our small, which feeds right into the Small Works Priority Program I started, but that also includes parks and facilities and some other things. But certainly, if we want to focus on sidewalks and multimodal type stuff, I'm all for that as well. And these are focused on local streets that aren't typically funded by our other funding sources like TIB. And so this is a little bit of how I want to just have a discussion to show you what framework we work under to get that type of stuff done, and then also kind of the planning process I want to build so I can have that pool of projects, that list of things, and then we can program this stuff in amongst our other work. Then talk briefly about the 6-year tip as well, because I think there's also some other priorities council has that I've fed through, like for instance, potentially moving up the priority on projects like SR20 and Reed Street signal improvement and the Cook Road Trail Road signal are examples, but really both of these should work in tandem together, because right now we have about $5.5 million of funding we're working with for some of these bigger projects like the Jones-John Liner undercrossing and the Cascade Trail, which is a multimodal project. And so it's just about how, start a discussion that kind of gives me some direction on how we mold all those things together in our program. So I'll turn it over to Nathan for right now, and he can do his presentation there. Then we'll kind of talk about kind of what my vision is and how I need to tweak it to meet your vision.
Turn so I can see the PowerPoint presentation so I can narrate for you guys. So go ahead and pull it up, Woody, when you can. Okay, so yeah, this is just a 2026 Sedro-Woolley Parks project update. Just kind of letting the council know the status of a couple of the projects and a couple of things to look at for the future. So next slide. So you guys are all familiar with Olmsted Park. Everything that you see in the graphic there is almost complete. I don't know if they're looking at a ribbon cutting day. I don't know if we have one yet, but anyway, it's progressing along just nice. Next slide. So this is the covered picnic buildings that the council so graciously authorized to fund. So those are nearing completion. Next slide. The restroom facility, also in kind of the same status. These pictures are already a couple of weeks old, so I think the buildings, are painted now, so it's looking more complete now. So next slide. The caretaker's house, same story. Next slide. This is just the plaza seating area with the information kiosk and the plantings. Looking pretty good. Next slide. Just the entrance kind of looking northeast towards the mountain. And that's the park sign on the left side there. Okay, next slide. This is a really cool, so this is kind of separate from the main project. This is Will's Bridge. Everything that you see there was completely built by the Janicki employee group, and it cost the city almost nothing to get that thing built, so it's a really cool thing. I recommend checking it out next time you guys are up there. So, next slide. Equally as awesome of a project is the fishing dock, which is a Rotary Club project with the Wildcat Steelhead Club. 100% funded by donations. Next slide. So what we don't have completed and what we don't have a plan to fund yet is everything that you see in the red circled area. So zooming in, next slide. So what that area consists of is the playground, the sports courts area there, and some sidewalks and various plantings. So next slide. So this is just some graphics of the proposed playground. Next slide. So next slide. So the approximate cost for the playground piece without the sports courts is going to be somewhere in the $600,000 range. And we have various options to fund that, which Bill can talk about later. You know, we're going to have a little bit of a balance in the Park Impact Fee Fund. There's the general fund balance that you guys are aware of, REIT 1 and 2, maybe some other potential options. So just giving you an idea what that project would cost to finish that. That does not include the sports courts portion. That's just the playground only. So next slide. So and then the next park thing is the flood, just an update of where we're at with all the flood repairs. So some of these pictures are recycled from the 2021 flood. I think this one is, but this is just to give council an idea of what we deal with down there with this flood situation. So next slide. A lot of water down there. A lot of damages. Next slide. Yeah, this is kind of the aftermath. We have a ton of gravel washed away, and it's just a huge mess to clean up. But the good news is it's getting a little bit less every year. This was a 2021 picture. We changed the type of gravel that we went back with this last time, and it didn't want to wash away as easy. It was gravel that didn't have a lot of fines in it, so that's a good thing. Next slide. Yeah, just more devastation. Next slide. It's just our amphitheater. It's funny to go down there, and you guys have probably been down for the summer concert series, and you've seen how vibrant of a place that is, you know, during the summertime versus, you know, how much devastation is down there after a flood. So, next slide. More devastation. That's a backstop that got flipped up, and we had to completely reset. That was from 2021. That did not happen this time. So, next slide. Bleachers washed up. Next slide. More fencing. So that's a lot of the issues we have down there is chain link fencing damage. So, next slide. So just kind of a summary of where we're at today. These are just still estimates because not everything is completed yet, but we're going to be about $50,000 for chain link fencing repairs, $20,000 for gravel, $12,000 for other stuff like we had a bunch of our playground surfacing wash away, things like that. So about $82,000. So it's unfortunate, but it's the reality. So next slide. So that kind of brings us to the next proposal that I'd like to present to the council to think about funding. So you guys are all familiar with the concept of relocating the baseball complex from out of the floodplain to Winnie Hauser Park, which just makes a lot of sense because, you know, why have ball fields with all that fencing and backstops that are susceptible to that much damage in a floodway. So this is just a graphic showing what we could potentially put out there. So we think we can get 4 ball fields with a little bit of room for expansion. So next slide. And then the other part of this is we would move the soccer function, which is currently at Winnie, to Riverfront. And the thought process is that soccer doesn't have backstops, goals, that infrastructure that's susceptible to the flood damage. So if we have a high water warning come in, we can just pull the soccer goals to high ground, let the water come in, inundate everything, and then we just have a little bit of cleanup when we're done. So next slide. So once again, to fund this project, it's going to be in the ballpark of $400,000, and same funding options. So I think that's about it. Next slide. Yeah, so that's about it.
So with that, one of the pieces of funding we have remaining is the leftover, I guess I call it the leftover funding. Kelly maybe will help me with it, from the Family Promise efforts we've had with them, I guess, paying us back for the building and that type of thing. That funding could certainly be used to help switch the ball fields back and forth, and whether we use some park impact fee funds or some REAP funds to make up the rest of the money to make that switch. That would be something that we propose. And then the piece with Olmsted Park Phase 3, which is the playground equipment and that type of thing, that's something that we can get RCO money for, but RCO money is really 3 years out by the time you apply for the funds and they give you the contract and that type of thing. And it's something that we'd like to do this year if we could, and we certainly could, but that would require council willing to spend some of the general fund money reserve on that. Maybe a good capital project for it, but that's kind of what we're looking at in order to get funding to roll around in that amount. And the playground equipment that Nathan's spec'd out for, it's really cool. It's kind of fully ADA accessible. It's wheelchair ramp accessible up to the top platform, and so they can actually engage in it. And it's just a neat piece of playground equipment. And then we propose to do kind of like the half-court basketball court that can convert into pickleball courts with our own crews to do that as a day labor project. And that would complete a lot of the activity-centric components of Olmsted Park. And then what we do with the kind of the last third of that activity area, we need some ideas on that. It could be all sorts of things from, I think originally it was slated for like a volleyball court, but it could be other things too. But getting those two components in actually gives people activities to do other than just walking the trails and that type of thing. But so that's one suggestion that would be a good thing to potentially spend general fund reserve if that's the pleasure of the council. But for this right here, if there's kind of a consensus opinion I can get from council on those two different pieces, we could bring a motion at the end of February and then get some of this stuff started, depending on what the appropriate thing to do is. Or we can make the Olmsted Park piece certainly just a planned project, and that's fine too.
Madam Mayor? See, so I just had a great presentation, great ideas. I love them all, of course. So with I wonder if it makes sense to prioritize the fields over the playground equipment.
That's part of it.
Okay, because I just see a lot more people and children and families utilizing the fields over what we have that could utilize the playground equipment at one time for the same amount of money. Or I think it's projected a little less.
It's a little less.
Yeah, a little less for switching the fields. So I think that would be really neat if we kind of looked at that. Parking, I've mentioned the idea, and people are really excited about the idea of having more soccer fields that are easier to maintain. Saves us a lot of money. It's a great idea. But parking for the baseball tournaments up at the Winnie Hauser, and would there be enough parking? I don't know, but it's something to maybe think about. Maybe there's opportunity to expand parking or something. But for right now, I would almost say, you know, if I had the choice with the money that's available without digging into funds that might not be, you know me, I love to save the funds we have. I would go with the fields, and I see there's so much opportunity for fields over there. We can really be in competition with Burlington at that fact almost. Maybe not that much, but.
Go ahead.
You know, Olmsted Park is in my ward, and people have asked me, several people asked me, and I know you guys don't have firm things, and we're waiting on the ribbon cutting. When will people be able to start using the trails or the dock and all that? You know, do you have like a ballpark idea of when?
Well, right now, our existing targets by the end of February, when the caretaker's residence, we want to be able to open up the public restrooms.
I
Right.
see.
And so, I don't know if they've done the stucco yet or not, but that's kind of a weather-dependent thing to expect to an extent. But we've had great weather this winter, so that's that piece of it. And then right now, the big thing on the caretaker residence is getting PSE power to install the power vault, and you know the vaults are going to supply electricity to the restrooms and the caretaker's residence. So we kind of got a PSE hang up right now.
Okay.
And then we can finish everything and then get it going. And we're planning on having the ribbon cutting towards the end of March.
Okay, that's good. I had one other question. As a former local Little League coach, I know those ball fields are at a premium. I didn't I know at Riverfront, at least when I did it years ago, there were 3 ball fields. Is there another one gonna be up at Winnie Hauser, or the 4, because that would add a ball field, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's 4 currently at Riverfront, so basically, there's 2 T-ball size, like the smaller size
Right.
fields, and then 2 regular size, so yeah, they're basically be replacing what we're losing down at Riverfront.
I love the idea, but it is a funding issue, and we can only, you know, fund what we can, but are there any other grant possibilities on Olmsted on the equipment?
RCO is the main grant funding source for recreational activity type equipment. I mean, there could be a couple other really small sources out there, but that's the primary funding source most people use for parks and recreation. And they just got a long process.
Right, thank you.
Very competitive.
Councilwoman Kesty?
Thank you for all your work that you guys are doing on this. And I really do agree with Councilmember Lavaca. I like the idea of the switching of the play fields and utilizing that, and then waiting for potential grant money to finish up Olmsted. I think what you guys have done out there is tremendous. I think what the trail builders have done out there and what's being proposed to be out there, I think there's enough to enjoy for now that we can say, all right, let's wait and see if we get some money and focus on switching where more kids can utilize the play fields. That's where I would like.
Yes, ma'am?
Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. I like the baseball field idea. So you guys knocked it out of the park there, so to speak. The one thing I noticed, Councilman Lavaca brought up the parking down there, and that was a concern of mine too, because I've been down to soccer games and stuff there, and even parking with a motorcycle can be challenging. But it looks like the way you have it, everything placed here, you could punch that parking lot out another like 1/3 of the length of it. So that could be a possibility. Obviously, that would add cost to it. The other question I had, as far as the Skagit River Park flood damage, are we looking at getting FEMA reimbursement for that $82,000? And if so, I know that the playground resurfacing needs to go back in, obviously, but the chain link fencing repairs for $50,000, the gravel restoration needs to be done, obviously, but some of that money that we would be taking towards doing chain link, putting that stuff back up for the infrastructure for the actual baseball fields, could we take that money and apply it to redoing our baseball fields, not on site, but on a different site? So we're not spending any money on chain link down there. We can bring boulders in and line where we need to so cars can't get out on the field or whatever the case may be, but just trying to apply that at least 50 towards getting Winnie Hauser done.
I'm gonna take it. So yes on the, well, you wanna
We'll
take
take it together, how's that?
the FEMA stuff.
So, I don't know when we put fencing in and whatnot, whether we can reuse that fencing up at Winnie Hauser. So we're reducing some material expense there. Probably have to put new posts in and that type of thing. As far as FEMA reimbursements, yes, we would be eligible to use that FEMA reimbursement to basically repair and replace for resiliency in kind. And we're doing this for ball fields, you can certainly, and we're even putting the new fields, the soccer fields in, so we're just kind of replacing things. And certainly with FEMA money, becoming more resilient is something that's appropriate for the funding. However, there's times where FEMA money doesn't come in for a couple years either, so it kind of depends there. But certainly, you could also, for instance, use that FEMA money to expand the parking for the purposes of ball fields and stuff if it came in 2 years later or something like that. So we'll utilize that funding the best we can there. And then, our first priority, I think, is doing the, switching the ball fields even before doing the playground equipment at Olmsted Park. But, both projects have their merits. And just because the ball fields as they're configured now just always has this new maintenance risk that's gonna happen every time we have high water. So that really is where our first focus is. And then And Olmsted Park can certainly be programmed at a later date to do that, and we'll figure that out. But, and so we'll come back with what we think our funding mosaic is for swapping the ball fields, and we will likely, I think, have that happen in October, November timeframe, just because that's when all the Little League stuff goes away, and we can actually do that project during off-season construction season site stuff. We're not like pouring a bunch of pavement and stuff, or we're worried about those limitations. And so that's, and I'll let Nathan finish off, but I think that's what our, concept plan of a plan right now is this would be October, November work, and to it between seasons, and then come back to council with kind of what a good funding scenario is and whether or not we need approval for using some of that funding for this project.
Bill, can you make sure you speak into the mic?
Okay. So anyway, so with that, so thanks for some of that direction. We'll certainly take that up. So
I just have one comment.
Sure.
It's something that
Yes,
we've actually talked about, and it's something that I know Nathan took to heart and did an amazing job with, and that is the ADA playground equipment. So we do have several individuals, families who have children with ADA, and they're unable to play in the soccer fields or in the baseball fields. So I think we still need to give consideration to that. Those are families that are kind of forgotten. Obviously they weren't even mentioned up here earlier. So let's keep that in mind.
Sure.
I have a question.
And so the next
ahead,
part.
Nora. Nora
Oh,
has a
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I understand. So the steps are, number one, restore the baseball fields, submit our public assistance request to FEMA if that's all approved.
We've already done that, actually.
Oh, that's
yeah.
happened, okay. So that's all happening now, and then in October, we'll be doing the big swap. I see, okay. And we will be seeking funding for the playground. I agree that, the playground equipment is really, really important, and we want to have those play spaces for use. This was one of the big things that came up when I was doorbelling. People mentioned that they'd like to see more of, it's something that one of our strengths, but people did mention that they wanted to see more of those playgrounds for kids. So, yes.
Madam Mayor? Madam Mayor?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make mention that we do have two really beautiful ADA accessible parks with Jana Key down at the playfields, and also Cameron Swing as well at Riverfront Park. So we do have some wonderful ADA accessible parks.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, if I may too. Yeah, I was going to say that too. So it's not like they're left without completely, for sure. But if there's any way that we can do some soccer fields down this summer at Riverfront, kind of how you had laid out in the Riverfront fields around there, that could open up some more fields. One thing that I've gotten a lot of is we don't have enough fields for many kids, which would be a lot of kids and families, to play out at the same time. And so being able to play soccer or baseball, things like that, it brings a ton of people together. You got like 100 people at least at each game, right? So it's a great opportunity. And if we can get 2 more fields down there, that would be cool this summer. And then at least people kind of get in their mind, like, this soccer's down here now. And then when that field switch happens, it might be better. Also, you had mentioned, Nate, at one point, the possibility of selling part of the fields that are unused in that area and being able to apply that to a bank account or something like that for future use for park equipment, things like that. Possibly the pickleball court or things up at Homestead. But I think that would be on the table too, or something that would be definitely worth considering since they don't get used. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to follow up, although the first move toward the ball fields does make a lot of sense to do it first, because you wouldn't want to fix them at Riverfront and then have to do it all over again. But I sort of jogged my memory that when I was doorbelling, there's a lot of families in those neighborhoods across from Olmsted Park, and a lot of them have young children. They'd love to see a playground in there. So I know it's a financial thing. And I also wanted to thank both of you for your sterling work on the parks. And one last comment. I have a friend that's pretty high up in county government in Whatcom County, and he told me FEMA is a nightmare right now. That they don't even know that they'll get their funding for their towns that were underwater. So I don't know if I'd hold my breath on that.
Just a follow-up to Councilmember Henderson's question about not, about delaying and, putting the money towards moving the fields. The only challenge there is that if we don't fix them now, we've already got user groups planning to use the fields, like, I think tryouts start like the first week of April, so that's why we're under the gun to get everything, because if we didn't fix the fields right now, then they wouldn't have any place to play. So I totally agree, though, why put money into something if you're gonna immediately go back, but there's that dilemma to consider.
I see.
So.
That's a good point. Also, I just had one more thing to add. Councilman Lavaca reminded me of something. For a creative funding option, when we do put in the soccer fields down there at the park, when lodging tax time comes around, that's a fantastic opportunity to get money for field maintenance. That's the only way that Burlington is able to pay for their field maintenance is through lodging tax funding. So keep that in mind.
Just one final thing. So the schematic that I showed you guys up on the PowerPoint for the stuff down at Riverfront Park, that's just conceptual at this point. If you guys want to move forward with this, we're going to actually spend some time and have a landscape architect actually place the fields where they would lay out the best, look at the parking, do a little studying on that. So just kind of looking for direction. Do you want to proceed to that next level of planning?
Yeah, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I would say, yeah, that would be great. And it would be nice if in that, I think it'd be some goals and stuff like that, but for that, this summer, some of that engaged. And I know maybe it happens, maybe it not, because all the planning has to go in. But I would be in favor of starting that planning.
And that would be actually occurring in the fall of the year, correct? That would be after this,
In a
Yeah.
perfect world, we would, soccer plays all the way up until Halloween, basically. So we would have everything ready to go, shovel ready. We would break ground on the new ball fields, get those built, and so that they're ready to play for the following spring, while simultaneously doing the work at Riverfront. So I mean, it's going to be a heavy lift to make it all the pieces fit.
Madam-
So
I'm sorry. But, Madam Mayor, just one more thing. FIFA is this year, right? 2026 World Cup, right? So, I mean, I would imagine a lot of kids and people would be out there looking for soccer fields where they can. So, I know that all of Skagit is looking at how they can kind of promote that. It would be really cool if maybe we have 2 or possibly 4 fields available in the soccer range down at Riverfront for supporting that activity. But that's going to be a big thing. That's going to be in Seattle, and it's going to be huge, and you're going to have a lot of people excited about soccer all of a sudden. So I'm just throwing that out there.
But doing something like that, we'd have to delete at least 3 of the baseball fields and that.
Well, I think it'd be on the other side of the, it would be on the other side where the grass is,
Right.
across from the baseball fields in the riverfront area, in the
Where the farm
PowerPoint.
is?
Yeah, in the PowerPoint, it showed where the farm was, and then it also showed where the fielding was, where we usually do parking for the, for events over in, the concert and stuff.
Yeah. The piece of the exhibit of putting a field layout where the farm is kind of a future thing. So there is some steps to convert that property to something we can use for that. One of it is we need to annex it into the city. So we want to do basically a subdivision of that entire parcel to be 2 parcels, a west parcel that we potentially sell to a farmer or something like that, and the east parcel that's the most valuable for park use. But then we need to annex that into the city, because right now, and forgive me, I don't quite know, but I believe it's probably protected ag land at this point. So there's a process there to get that converted into something we use for the city, and then we could actually build those types of facilities rather than keep it in farming, which is what we do right now. So there's a little bit of a process of that too, but what was depicted on the slide is part of the concept we're already thinking about of how we'd utilize that as part of the park.
So I wonder what the council would think about maybe seeing if you guys wouldn't mind kind of prioritizing where we could add to a field. Reed Street, we could put maybe a field, just something, because soccer fields are fairly easy to maintain and move around. So you just have goalposts. They can eventually go somewhere else if we bought them. And then kind of prioritize that for the FIFA summer event happening here in Washington and Seattle, and stirring up a lot of kids towards that. So it's just something, if the council sees that as an opportunity. If it's not, then obviously we wouldn't have to necessarily push for getting some fields out for them.
So I'd like to see, actually, hear from the council, how many would like to see the switch up of the fields, the soccer and the baseball field? That was a question by Director Bullock, and I think he'd like to have some direction in that.
I'm all
ways.
for it.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm all for it.
it looks like you gotta go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with part of that, we will, in the next few weeks to a month or so, come up with kind of a more refined funding plan for how to make that happen. Then we'll start with that planning and be shovel-ready by the end of soccer season this year, so we can get them all swapped over for, I'll just say, sports season of 2027 at this part. And then we'll look into what we can do with the FIFA stuff. But
Okay.
so,
Moving on?
good, moving on. So this next part is, the other piece is, okay, how do we develop a sidewalk-centric piece of our programming for our stuff? And so there's a couple different pieces of this that we work with all the time. And this city and many other cities do quite a bit of day labor work. So part of what, so there's a couple different definitions here I kind of want to work with. And I just wrote this as a white paper rather than a bulleted list. But a public work is a legal term for building infrastructure, okay? And then we have a public works department, don't confuse the two, okay? So a public work is defined as something that is an installation of infrastructure. And there's some more specific installation definitions as well. So like if you're doing asphalt maintenance, anything over 2 inches thick is considered construction. Anything under 2 inches thick is considered maintenance that could potentially just be done by the crews, okay? And then within doing a public work, the city has, or all cities and counties have a particular set of rules that limit the amount of day labor you can do. And part of this, actually, the history behind that is coming from the New Deal in the 1930s, okay? Where part of it was government needed to employ people to get the economy going. And so there is a limitation on how much actual construction we can do with our own crews, so that way we're still feeding the economy by hiring contractors. And part of this, I just kind of want to familiarize yourself so you kind of understand a little bit of the juggling act we go through in order to get the day labor we can do. So we have the main day, one of the limitations is no bid splitting. And that is, I have a block of sidewalk and my day labor limit says I can go halfway and then I'll contract the other half. The projects, we're limited to $150,000 for 2 trades, which can be like earthwork and concrete, or as opposed to changing one electrical box. But if you have to change a bunch of sheetrock and the electrical box, it's 2 trades, and it's kind of what it is. So if you're only doing 1 trade, you're allowed to do $75,500 per project. And if you're doing 2 trades, and usually we try to figure out how to put 2 trades in there because we can do a lot more for that. And then you have an overall limitation on day labor, which is 10% of your construction. So this last year in 2025, we did $8.5 million of construction, so we could do a total of about 4 full-blown day labor projects. So we could do up to about 850,000. This next year, we're only
How
doing,
much day labor do we actually do?
I don't know, we didn't look at that.
It varies from year to year. I mean,
Are we like hitting that 10%?
we've been over some years, long years ago, but we don't do as much as we used to. So we normally are well below that, I would say.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine. And most of the time, we do about $2 to $4 million a year of construction work. And that's pretty typical for most cities our size, which means you can do, between about $200,000 and $400,000 a year worth of day labor. But we juggle these kind of numbers and try to optimize it quite often. I like maximizing my day labor because it makes my dollars go farther and I have a little bit more control. I don't have a bidding process to go through. And we do day labor projects on both facilities as well as streets and sidewalks. And this is all day labor work that is more than just maintenance. We can do maintenance, that's what we are as a maintenance company. But we're allowed to do a certain amount of construction. And so really a lot of what it's about too is the focus of it. So next year, we're not gonna be able to do very much. But the following year, when we build Jones John Liner undercrossing and we build Cascade Trail 2B and we do a full paving program, we're gonna have about $6 to $7 million of ongoing projects. So we could do about as much day labor as our crew can handle. Nathan's gonna go over a little bit about how we divide and conquer with our city workforce that we have and the types of things they typically do. Most day labor stuff we do is usually off of the summer construction season, because during that season is when our crews are the busiest maintaining the city streets and the grass we mow and that type of thing. So we're both of us are used to working within that whole day labor limit thing and then taking advantage of different construction projects we do that we use day labor rather than going out and contracting with a contractor. So a couple of examples of that this year were the modifications we did on the Fan property, which is one of the properties we're getting ready to sell that we had to purchase with the roundabout. The bulk of that work to modify that house to meet the specifications we needed was done by our own crews. Another building was the evidence building we discovered as getting ready to paint it, that it actually had significant structural issues and damage to different things. And then we did the bulk of that project with day labor as well rather than contracting, and we saved significant money by doing that. And then we keep track of those, and anything we do worth more than $25,000, we actually have to publish in the paper to let people know that we did this and we stayed within our day labor limit. So with a little bit of that, I'll let Nathan talk a little bit about kind of what, the size and scope of our maintenance crew, what they typically do, and where we have the opportunity to utilize them to do some of this construction work rather than contracting it.
So yeah, if you guys could reference this sheet that I left for everybody up there, I'm just gonna kind of run over kind of a summary of our crew and our different activities that we do throughout the year. So maintenance and operations, there's 13 of us. There's actually 12 at the moment. This council authorized a third or a 13th in the last budget amendment, which we have yet to fill. Should get that filled in the next couple of months. So it's going to be a nice shot in the arm. But so we all kind of work as a team. But everybody, the positions are funded by budget fund, I guess. So the parks and facilities, it has an equivalent of 5.97 full-time employees. And we maintain 112 acres of city parks and lands, 63,597 square feet of city facilities. And that includes all types of maintenance, painting, janitorial, cleaning, life safety compliance activities, anything that goes along with facilities maintenance, special event support, holiday decorations. We do the hanging baskets in the summertime. And we have about 15 unit price contracts that we have with outside vendors for various skilled trades. The cemetery fund is a 0.72 of an FTE. We have one employee that spends a lot of time out there just doing all the interments and the grounds maintenance. He does come over and support the other operations when he has time, mainly in the winter time. And we average about 40 interments per year. Streets, 3.08 FTE, and just a summary of all the stuff that we're responsible for: 50 center lane miles of city streets and highways. And yeah, we do have to maintain, not pothole patching, but we do like the street sweeping, snow removal, drainage maintenance, even on state highways. And in our transportation system, we have about 3,000 street signs, and we're mandated by federal regulations that we have to have an inspection program for, it's called retroreflectivity, to make sure that you can see your signs at night. And we've got the city divided into council wards, and we try to inspect every sign in one council ward per year. So we try to get through the entire city in a 6-year period. And we replace, on average, about 400 a year. 46 city-owned streetlights, 10 RRFBs as a help me out, Bill. Rotating,
Sorry, rectangular rapid flashing beacons.
thank you. Oh, it's right there, I could have read it. 5 streetlights, 40 tons of asphalt patching. We put down about 500 gallons of traffic paint every summer. And then general activities like snow and ice control and other emergency operations, resurfacing alleys. All of the roadside mowing that you see even out along Highway 20 is done by our crews. Stormwater, we have 4.13 FTEs, and we sweep 5 days a week, about 2,000 hours per year of street sweeping time. 2 pump stations, 14 detention facilities, 12 storm filters, about 250,000 linear feet of pipes and ditches, all of the maintenance along Brickyard Creek, and then we have about 2,200 catch basins in the city, and we have more federal regulations. We have to physically inspect and document half of those catch basins so we have to basically inspect half the city every year, and that's a permit, requirement. So. And clean as needed. And then if we identify a basin that needs to be cleaned, we have about 90 days to clean it. So once you find one dirty or plugged, the clock starts ticking and you have to have it inspected and cleaned, but within that 90-day period. And then illicit discharges, we respond to 5 or 6 of those a year where someone's dumped oil out of the back of their truck and there's an oil sheen and we have to stop the spill. So. But so our workload is very weather dependent, and we manage the workflow by the season. Winter time, November through February, we focus on activities that are not weather dependent, and they're all listed there. So we do our stormwater inspections and our compliance program. We do some extra street sweeping during leaf season, street sign inspections and replacement. When the asphalt plants are closed, we use cold patch to do pothole stuff. Stockpiling construction materials, tree trimming, and we have a lot of certifications that our crews have to maintain, so we do all of our research stuff in the wintertime. The parks and facilities crew turns to inside activities like HVAC filter changes, cleaning gutters, carpet cleaning, all the other stuff listed there. Equipment servicing. And in the wintertime, we're staffed, we're in a really good place. Spring, summer, fall, which is March through October, we do our activities that are weather dependent. So that's also, of course, when the grass comes to life and we open the splash pad, the RV parks, spring sports are going, and alleyways finally dry up to the point where you can go in with our road grader and resurface them. We do our herbicide applications, spring flowers, hot patching with our asphalt. In July and August, we have 2 guys that are pretty much on that painter, so you'll see us out with doing our road painting for two whole months. And then we support Blast from the Past, Logger Rodeo, and the other community events. We do outside facilities projects, and we provide support to the larger capital projects that Bill and engineering has going. And we supplement our work in the spring and summer season with seasonal part-time employees. We usually have 1 gardener that takes care of weeding around City Hall, the senior center, community center, 2 maintenance assistants, 1 flower basket watering person, which I may need one of those if anybody knows anybody, and then a part-time janitor. So I guess the point of this whole discussion is we have a lot of stuff to get done, but we do have windows of time that we could fit in some of the day labor projects, and we do. We usually try to do, a few smaller projects a year, and kind of our rule of thumb is if something takes more than a week of time, then we automatically go out to bid. Because if we try to do those projects in-house, then we have service requests that start to stack up and become a problem. that was kind of the point of that talk, was just to let everybody know of all the stuff that we have to get accomplished in any given year, and some of our limitations. So,
You do a remarkable amount of work, you and your team, for only having 13 FTEs, and then a few part-times that come on for a few months out of the year. So thank you very much, Nathan, to you and to your team for everything that you do. Of course, you already know that you're considered in the city a real gem, so, yeah.
So the next thing to talk about a bit is some project scope considerations. So typically ADA ramps, and it depends on if they're simple ramps or some fairly complex ones. Those we generally like to hire out to a professional concrete contractor. I've kind of divided kind of a discussion of sidewalk gap and sidewalk repair type projects into kind of three sets. One's kind of the simple sidewalk fits that are, well within our city cruise limits to do stuff. And Councilman Henderson, the Bennett Street sidewalk, the Bennett sidewalk gap is a perfect example of what that is. And that's something that we'll certainly knock out this summer as well, because that's something we can certainly do really easy. And sort of my goal here is, and then moderate sidewalk, complexity is, we might have a catch basin to replace. There's lots of Burlington basins around that, just while we have the opportunity to replace them. But, and segments that may include some minor curb and gutter repair, or sometimes when you're doing a sidewalk, the one that we have kind of on our small works roster or right now is the two sidewalk. I want to do sidewalk on both sides for going on Metcalf between the high school and Warren. That one's kind of in that moderate zone, but it is fairly big length, so it's really bigger than a $350,000 effort. But example of that is where we have driveways that are at an inappropriate slope. When we cross them with a sidewalk, we generally have to fix the driveway and then re-slope it back up with the temporary construction easement. That's kind of a moderate thing, which certainly our crews can do as well. And then the complex sidewalk side of things, especially if we're installing curb and gutter for the first time and we need to add a whole drainage system with it, that's something we really need to cover with our capital projects program. But really, part of it is to do this type of work strategically and for at least I guess I haven't had the capability to really kind of do this type of stuff in most of my career, so having an interest of taking care of these things and start making progress is candy land for me. I'm excited about doing this. But what I kind of want to do, we have, typical with most cities, you generally have a lot of this type of stuff around, okay? And it's to identify some of those low-hanging pieces of fruit and then use that for the next couple of years to make progress on those and get those things kind of checked off the list. And then along with that is develop a more comprehensive program with that small works priority list and use that as a pool of projects. And that includes things more than just transportation, which is fine. I'm certainly good with focusing on multimodal type improvements, but then take that list. That's just the pool of projects, right? But take that and treat it more like a 6-year, which is why I gave you the 6-year TIP a little bit, and plan out, say, like 4 years worth of day labor and small works projects to take care of along with our other programs, so that way we can make some meaningful strategic progress with this. And that way, and just like the 6-year tip, you kind of see there's like a diagonal progress to it. Have that. So it's one of those pieces where it doesn't mean once we do that, those are set in stone, that's what we're doing for the next 3 years. But it gives us an idea that if, kind of example how we've done this in the past a little bit is really on a request basis, like the RFBs we put in on Township a couple years ago. Those types of things, if we kind of had that pool and an ability to plan them out, we would be more reactive to opportunities. Sometimes there's extra grant funding from TIB. Mark was very good about jumping on those. That's when we did those 48 ADA ramps in 2024 when I first got here. But it lets you, like I said, react more quickly to opportunities that aren't expected. Safe Route to Schools is another program that You know, it doesn't really fund a lot of these projects. They're more into funding RRFBs and that type of stuff. But there are times where they have come up with funding 5 times in the last dozen years where they say, hey, we have some extra money. We want to invest in infrastructure on those school routes as opposed to our typical warning devices they usually support. And if you don't have a list like that, it's kind of hard all of a sudden to come up with opportunities real quick next to schools. I'll kind of, I don't know if any of you have any other projects like Bennett, the Bennett Street Gap and that type of thing, but if in the next few weeks, if you folks can think of them, we'll be doing a little bit more. One of the things we don't have is we haven't comprehensively looked at all of our sidewalk gaps on GIS. We do have a good GIS documentation on our ADA deficient ramps because we have a pretty good ADA transition plan. But I'd really like to inventory different neighborhoods and take some time to do it. Because, I go walking in this town all the time during lunch, and there are certainly sidewalk gaps. There's one on State Street that Tom hits, and then we had a thing where there was an RV parked on the side of the road, and people were walking in the street to get around the RV because there's no sidewalk there. So there are lots of gap opportunities, and this is something where I'd like to, I think there's plenty of low-hanging fruit to kind of fill the next couple of years in both day labor and then when it's needed, contracts. It's going to probably be a combination of contract work and day labor, but maximize our day labor. I think that's a good strategy there. And then that gives us some time to do some important, meaningful projects, but then create this more routine program that I would say I'd revisit with council every year in January. Because if there's other priorities we want to move up because, there's a need somewhere, I have time for my team to design it and either his team or a contractor to build it that summer, right? But if I do this in July or June when the TIP comes out, we're talking like the next year. And if we can do reasonably scoped work, we can potentially get it done that summer. And then if we have a larger paving program like we do when TIB can fund us, then we can also get a greater economy of scale for that portion that needs to be contract and do kind of what we did in 2024 when we just banged out all those ADA ramps, which doesn't happen often. But that's kind of my vision of how to take some of those council goals and enact them for that thing. And make some real meaningful improvements to local streets that don't often get done.
It's really great. That's a great plan. It really is. I also know that we have a sidewalk project, and I don't know if you or Nathan would like to speak to it because there may be those individuals who would like to see their sidewalks restored in a proper way. And Nathan, can you share maybe a little bit about that?
You're referring to the sidewalk replacement program?
Right.
Yeah, so we have a program where the city will come in, and if you have a bad section of sidewalk with trip hazards, we'll come in and we'll remove the bad sections, dispose of the concrete for free, provide base for the sidewalk to be poured back, but it's up to the homeowner to hire a contractor, or they have the option to do it themselves too, to pour it back and get it inspected. And they have to get a right-of-way, a no-cost right-of-way permit, which because the fee is waived. And it's basically just so we have a record of when the sidewalk was completed, and then it gets inspected to make sure it was built to standards. So it's a good program. It's kind of a cost, it's an inexpensive way to get your sidewalk done if we can't get to it any other way, right? Kyle and David Davidson and I walked Jameson and Bennett today, and we identified several really bad sections that we're going to go ahead and go in, and the panels are bad enough that we're going to remove them and put gravel back. So that's another way we're going to address these, is if something's a hazard, we're going to get it dealt with until we can get it put back in concrete. Right. So.
Okay. So a couple really good plans coming out of Public Works. So thank you, both of you, for that. Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Go ahead,
Questions?
Councilman LaBaca.
Oh, sweet. Thank you. And thanks for presenting all that. We had a strategic kind of meeting, a strategic planning meeting a few weeks ago, and in that was a lot of great ideas to just stack on your guys' plate. Obviously, you do a lot, but part of it's updating the website, of course, and giving people an opportunity to kind of weigh in on sidewalk projects or things that they see within their neighborhood. That's really where the best feedback's going to come from. And as that comes to fruition, and we actually get an updated website that's a lot more user-friendly, then I think people will have a little bit more projects. It's hard for me, because I do walk around a bit, but I don't really think like, oh yeah, let me flag this and get this in. And so if more people are doing it. The challenge that I've seen with that, like when I'm advertising, like, hey, submit near misses or submit tickets for facilities or all that stuff, it floods in and then it kind of goes away when you're not talking about it. So it does create a lot of workflow. That's the thing. But on the website, it would be nice to kind of like have those sidewalk projects where, hey, we are filling this, we're doing this, and then people see it. You have projects page on there, and it's really great, and I thank you for updating it. And it has a number of projects on there for people to look at, but we might just say, like, okay, here's the small projects, sidewalks, little fills, things that take just a smaller amount of time versus, and then the larger projects which you have listed, and I think you have them all together. And so just kind of people hopping on, or we can actually, or I can say, hey, we can, if you're talking about your sidewalk, why don't we go here on the website and I can show you right here on my phone, and you can kind of see where we are. And that's tends to be what I do, because I'm with my phone when I'm talking to people out in the community and they want to know something about finance or about public works or about parks. I can go there and then I'm like, oh yeah, website, but let me see if I can navigate. If it's easy for me to navigate, then I know it's easy for them. And as I show them, they run more with it.
And that's one of our end goals too.
Councilwoman Patterson.
Or you can finish.
Go for it.
I really like the idea of developing an inventory, multimodal inventory. I think we should have the boat launch on there too, but that's a separate thing. And I like the idea of programming it out. I think there's two pieces that I'm hearing us talk about with the inventory piece. One of them is kind of the public input thing, but then there's also, like Nathan mentioned, some of the sidewalks are just really in poor condition objectively. And, you know, we do have a roads inventory that details the condition of the roads. And I think we could do something similar if we had, I think Alan was talking about this at our strategic planning session, having a contractor maybe come in and do that kind of inventory and see the condition of the sidewalks. I always like to have that kind of stuff verified with, you know, local people and local eyes. Maybe get some public input or have our public works staff review it. I think that the city should be careful with allocating, as it allocates public funds to these sidewalks, because I think, if I understand correctly, sidewalk repair is legally is the property owner's responsibility, and then we have this program that's kind of a cost share program where we'll do some of the work and the property owner does some of the work. And now we're talking about coming in and doing all of the work on some pieces of land. So I think it's an important thing to be mindful of as we create that inventory and then program out the projects and make sure we're doing it in a fair way based on some kind of criteria, so that it is fair in reality and in appearance.
So there is an RCW that allows cities to make sidewalk replacements and things like that a responsibility of the adjacent owner, but not all cities in Washington have that particular policy. This city happens to follow that. But, and I'm going to go off on a whole rabbit chase if I go into that too much.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you.
Sure.
Can we just change that? What would be the drawback
Possible.
of changing that?
Okay, so I'll go in my rabbit hole just a little bit, okay? My philosophy from where most of the cities I've come from, Mount Vernon has this policy too. It's kind of interesting, the city of Seattle does this as well, except they've written an ordinance that that makes the city responsible for almost all sidewalks except for urban villages and only some very minor things. And part of that is, so the philosophy I've generally come from is that jurisdictions and public works departments are the ones that do well with capital level improvements, okay? And citizens do well with sweat equity, the sweat equity maintenance share of projects. So things like clearing snow from your sidewalk that everybody in every city is pretty much responsible for, and debris, and doing street tree establishment with water and that type of thing, because they can throw their hose next to a street tree and keep it going. That are very hard to do for every lane mile for a city crew, because they have other things they need to do and support. But when you're talking about replacing $10,000-$20,000 of sidewalk in front of your house, most people, I know I would have a hard time doing that. You just can't squeeze blood from that turnip. But really, because with that RCW too that they're referencing, you could also say, the basis of the RCW is most city streets are easements, they're deeds of dedication, and so the property owners still essentially own the underlying property, but we have this easement to establish a public street right of way as well. So you could almost extend that and say, well, why don't they fix the streets too? So I come from the philosophy that city jurisdictional public works departments are the best ones at doing capital improvements, and the citizens are the ones best at doing sweat equity improvements. And so I really come from sort of the other side of the coin that I'm talking about. But there is an RCW that allows cities to make sidewalks the adjacent owner's responsibility to maintain and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of, I haven't looked into what it takes to change that philosophy. I think it's actually a more sustainable philosophy. So I don't know, I got to kind of get back to you
Yeah, I
on
don't think
that a bit.
anyone
Does that
here,
make
I don't think
sense?
anyone here is suggesting that
I know.
it's not in the best interest of the city for us to kind of try to figure this out at this stage. The other thing I wanted to say was I think the inventory is a good idea, because I think there are some funding opportunities that we could access, and having an inventory like that would really help us
Sure.
kind of attack the issue from all angles, because there's a lot of benefits of having sidewalks that are usable for the entire community, and a lot of different funding that's available for that kind of thing.
Completely agree. So counties are required to maintain road logs that log all those miles because it's related to the gas tax. Cities are not. So whether cities actively have those inventories is really hit or miss based on the city, based on their capabilities and their prior efforts. And then even if they do it, sometimes it becomes shelf art because you get leadership that's not as interested in keeping that up. So
We're all interested.
I come from the county system with my career, so I really like inventories because they help me plan and be strategic about things.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you, Bill, thank you, Nathan, and to all your crew. I know that there's not a lot of you, but you guys do an awful lot, and I'm very grateful for it. And I'm also very grateful that you take into consideration our wish list, and I'm very much looking forward to the safety and the ADA accessibility of the sidewalks, and so thank you very much.
Councilman Koch?
Yeah, just real quick, I want to thank you and your crews for the wonderful work on Olmsted Park, on the roundabout of, I've heard many good things about that. And did I miss it? Are the flashing lights in yet at the roundabout?
What? They're in.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The RFBs have been in since the beginning of November. The street lights just went up about 3 weeks ago.
That's what I was thinking about. Okay, great. Thank you you guys did a great job on both of those, so.
And the exciting thing is that we're about $50,000 under budget on the roundabout, so I'm like, woohoo.
Or I guess, I don't know if I can say this in open session, is the house for sale? That,
Yes, there's issues
Yes.
regarding that.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still working with the realtor to get it on the market as soon as possible and then sell it as soon as possible.
great, excellent work.
All right. Did you want to move on?
Yes.
Actually, I kind of talked about 2 and 3 at the same time.
Okay. Okay.
But one of my big things is please, anybody with other ideas that we should be focused on for low-hanging fruit projects and gap projects, we're going to make our own effort to identify a number of things on the list. We'll stick them on our transportation priority pool. I guess I would like to ask one thing. I've just kind of made the assumption, but I think, I guess, am I correct in assuming that council's interested in us being more multimodal sidewalk focused for the time being, as opposed to adding in other things like parks and facilities and stormwater and that type? Okay. We can certainly do that.
And there's the strategic plan that Charlie's going to bring back. So I think that needs to be integrated into this
Most
conversation.
certainly, yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
but this helps me kind of.
Yeah. I think you will get direction once that's all laid out. Yeah.
And we're still gonna seek funding for that playground, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're still doing that.
Yeah, this doesn't mean we do that to the exclusion of all else, but that's how, but it's just understanding how I need to be strategic with things, and then we'll certainly, we're always gonna have parks and facilities needs and other things like that coming up, but it doesn't make a difference. Do we spread that peanut butter across all of those, or do we, focus on one piece? And certainly, within 2, 3, 4 years, we'll see a difference of various sidewalk gaps being closed and that type of thing. And then maybe that's the appropriate time to shift to something a little bit different, or, and then not forgetting sidewalks, but, making them a more equal piece of the pie. But it's certainly a very worthy thing to focus on local sidewalk things as well. The other thing to think about too, as we come into our 6-year transportation improvement program planning period, of which I'm letting Peter take over for the first time, and like I've done 33 of these things in my career, so is one of those things is also think about some of the TIP priority improvement priorities that may shift, because I described that a little bit, how these things, just because they're in the 4th or 5th year, doesn't mean they can't shift up to being on deck for the next things we fund. Cool. And some of the things I've heard from council for on and off for about the last 6 months or so is, my sense is after our current projects in the pipeline start getting done, we need to be thinking about Reed Street and SR20 intersection improvements, and then Cook Road and Trail Road intersection improvements. That's the sense I have. Those are really the next two major projects to be on deck, as opposed to doing phase 3, 4, or 5 of Jones Road, after we get the connection made, which is not inappropriate. And that's kind of how I'd expect things happen. But if you have specific large major project things you'd like to see move forward, or your constituents would like to move forward, let me know, because I need to start planning for my next set of grant opportunities for those larger projects.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, I think once a strategic plan is approved by the council, they had some great ideas. And so I think that's going to answer some of your questions.
Yeah.
And Councilman Lavaca has a question.
Yeah, well, kind of a statement with the sidewalks. First of all, thank you. You're a font of knowledge, and it's just wonderful to have you on board, for sure. So the sidewalks, we did a lot of grinding on them, and then we did a lot of fill with the gravel in certain areas, and we really did improve the sidewalks out in the streets quite a bit. I mean, not everything, of course, but I just wanted to note that they haven't been neglected for the past couple of years. There's been a lot of improvements, and people in those neighborhoods have kind of noticed that. The grinding was a big deal, preventing a lot of trip hazards. There's still a number of things like on Telcott near downtown area and stuff like that. Of course, there's some areas where there's high because of roots, but there has been a lot of work that has been done.
Just to follow up on that, we are going to do another sidewalk grinding project this year, and we're focusing. So our first focus was kind of on the parade route, because we have so much pedestrian traffic in those areas in the downtown area, 4th of July Log Rodeo parade route. Now that we've got, Ferry, Metcalf, and some of the downtown done, we're going to move to Bennett and Jameson, kind of down in the elementary school areas. So you'll see some more work coming this spring. We actually just started that process this morning. So.
Yeah, there's, I mentioned the FIFA Soccer World Cup that's happening in Seattle. It's going to affect a lot of the communities around. There's also the 250th anniversary, and so there's going to be a lot more in the parade. you would imagine. I've heard good things so far. So, I mean, it's just going to be a big party year in that way. In Public Works, obviously, you guys do so much that just a really big advance thank you for everything. And I know it's going to be a strong year, but it's also going to be difficult on your team. Thank you.
Another real quick note I have, so the type of maintenance level activities we do for our sidewalks that Councilman Lavaca just described, those are still going to be ongoing. Those aren't going to be put aside with the Small Works Priority Program. The idea is that the closing the gaps, various sidewalk improvements, many may deal with roots and that type of thing. Those are taking care of those low-hanging fruits, or those things that when we have opportunities to take something and take care of it. The other thing is that this is an opportunity to utilize funding that we have remnants of to do these. We'll start directing those types of fundings to this. And then the other piece we'll do, as we come up with this plan together with council, as we start to tackle some, from one year to the next, there may be, these are also good investments to use on reserve funds if that's the funds we need to. So those are opportunities to maybe take off bigger chunks rather than smaller chunks. So we'll try to inform council when those opportunities may be ready to use. I know there's a concept, that, right now our council fund reserves are at 32%. Perhaps we can spend some of those reserves down to 24%, whatever, and that's an opportunity for a pool of money to actually, Councilman Lavaca's mentioned it would be nice to, make some of these big chunk improvements. Again, you want to use those monies very strategically, and typically that means you use them on capital type assets instead of very short-term assets that you're going to get out of it. But as we lay out this plan, that will give you an idea of, the number of projects council would like to see happen in various areas or whatever, and then what the funding requirement will be, and then figure out what outside opportunities we have to fund those. Remember, these typically aren't eligible for TIB and the other typical grants we did, like we did in 2024. But really, this is to support council on what the best strategic thing to do is. And that's my biggest interest. And so as I develop that program, we'll be able to give superior information to council to make their decisions with.
One thing I don't see on the tip here that I've heard from my fellow council members up here, and then Nathan actually took me on a little drive on some of our concrete streets, and I think that might be a good thing to add on. I don't know about the timeliness of it, but just having it on there so that if, so we're ready if some funding becomes available, some sort of concrete street remediation nationwide or something.
So one of the things, speaking of that, I know we're past 7 o'clock, so I'll try to wrap this up. But one of the things that we committed to do this summer as part of our paving program, especially because we have kind of a light paving program, we've identified 3 sections of Talcott east of Central Elementary School that are the worst sections of Talcott to do because we haven't done a lot of, even in my career, but done a lot of repairing of big sections of the concrete streets, which is kind of what you need to do. And we're going to basically commit about $100,000 to that, and then make some fairly big panel repairs, replace them with concrete, because being like with like. When you mix asphalt with concrete, it just gets to be a bigger problem. So that way, we have an idea of what spot repairs would be. So then we can start strategically repairing some of those things on 3rd, 4th, Talcott and other concrete streets, and get things to where, they're not going to be a Cadillac like if you rebuilt the road, but that's very expensive. We don't really have the money to do that. But perhaps we can make some progress on making some key spot repairs so that things are far more acceptable than they are. And then if we do get the opportunity to basically remove the concrete and rebuild a road base for asphalt road base, and then replace it with asphalt, because that's something we can maintain ongoing into the future. it's, we make things a little better right now, but it's also not something that's too expensive to sacrifice in the future if we need to do a wholesale paving project. And so that will give us some ideas then. We will do another inventory of those kind of old city streets and then come back to council and give them a strategic plan of, hey, let's take care of, you know, because we probably have a good 40 different spots that really kind of are crummy. But we can take care of the worst ones for this much money. Do you want us to pursue that, or should we pursue that at, you know, over a 4-year period, or do it all at once, or what it may be? But this will give us an order of magnitude, because we will have done it once.
You had actually mentioned to me, and of course it hinges upon opening up Talcott Street, but you had talked about the opportunity for money, funding that could be done, but that would take coordination, I am quite sure, with the school. And I don't know if you had a chance to look further into that or
No,
not.
I haven't had a chance. So what the mayor's talking about is one of the keys to being able to be eligible for TIB funding and federal funding is your functional classification of the road. And in my opinion, I think it's Bennett. Bennett's to the south of Talcott. That I don't think Bennett goes all the way to, but Talcott certainly could be a minor collector or a major collector. And then 3rd and 4th Street connecting State to Jameson could also join that collector bunch. But in order, because Talcott goes all the way to Railroad, but you can't make it a collector if the road's permanently closed in the middle. It needs to be a collector, right? So, and the ordinance that closed that street was really supposed to be a 1-year trial period, and it just got closed and nobody really revisited it. So they don't necessarily have some right to close it right now. But, you know, it would take coordination with the school district, because it is there's a certain amount of political nature to keeping that closed. But if we could open that back up, then within about a year, I could do the kind of the paperwork and all the application procedures you need to do to make it functionally classified. And then that would actually make that road eligible for state and federal funding, as well as 3rd and 4th. And because 3rd and 4th, it serves the high school that connects Jameson, which is kind of the major east-west route. And that's a way we could actually get eligibility to get it 80% funded if we were to rehabilitate that entire street.
Right, okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor? Yeah, if that's possible. I know that the council's talked about that before. I know Councilman Henderson made a big point of like the concrete road down there. We've had people over here coming to the council specifically for that concrete road. I've talked to Senator Wagner, who lives over there. He's made interest. So if that is, I mean, that's like a first ray of hope I've heard as far as like actually fixing that or getting progress made or even seeing some panels done. So that would be a huge motion forward, and I think a lot of people would be very excited by that.
And I've made functional classifications my entire career for almost every jurisdiction I've been in, so I know how to do it. But one of the things is getting that road fully open, otherwise there's just no way to do it. You're just not eligible. And then, so that's kind of a piece of this, is try to figure out to make some progress on it, because I've heard that from the public numerous times when I've been here in council, is to make some kind of progress on those older streets, to take care of some of the issues in an affordable manner, and then potentially if we could come to a situation where I could then proceed with changing the functional classification, we could make those roads eligible for state and federal funding like we get on Jameson and the other collector streets we have, like Reed Street. You know, the only reason why we pay Reed Street is because it is a major collector in the city.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes, thank you. You have my interest absolutely piqued right now.
I'm sorry.
So we own that roadway. The city of Sedro-Woolley owns that roadway. That's correct. So can we add a discussion for our next meeting, maybe just even an update in in your report. Would you be willing to look into that and grab that ordinance and kind of see where it's,
I have it on my desktop.
do you?
So
Okay.
I will print it and supply it to council for a good of the order discussion.
Because if we could open up that funding on Talcott, we can't afford as a city to do that. I mean, the roadways are the most expensive thing that we own by far. Way more than the sewer plant. If we had to replace all our roadways, it'd be in the billions of dollars. So, that is something that, I have worked very closely with a lot of the residents in Ward 4 about. We're gonna try and come up with a plan, and like Nick said, this is the first ray of hope that we've even heard. So, if we need to coordinate that with the school, open it, get the project done, and then have some kind of an agreement that, you know, that'll be closed during school hours and it'll open up after school hours, whatever, we put that onus on them to open and close their gates for their safety.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that actually wouldn't work either. The road needs to be open to regular routine collector traffic.
Okay,
But
perfect.
But
I mean,
I-
we can-
yes, I will update you and let you know what
I'd-
all the different details
I'd
and
like
stuff
that.
are.
Thank you very much.
That's something I've been looking into for about the past 3-4 months, I think, just to figure out how to crack this nut. So thank you for letting me talk so long about all this stuff. There is a lot to cover and a lot to talk about, but it's great to have a strategic section with you folks. And I'll do my best to start putting things in place.
Oh, Bill, you do a great job. You really do. There's many departments that you have to cover, lots of information that you need to juggle, and you really do a tremendous job. Very glad to have you on board. Thank you. Great presentations tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nathan. Always, always very informative. We really appreciate all that you provide for us, so thank you. Yeah. Okay, with that then, we will end our new business and move on to public comment. It is 7:23, so I will open up public comment. And again, a reminder that we do not respond. This is a meeting that is held in public. It is not a public meeting, but we do want to hear what you have to say. And so don't be discouraged if we do not respond. Certainly, if there is something that you would like us to get back to you on, let us know, and tomorrow we would put whatever department onto that to get back to you and answer your questions. So, anybody want to come forward for public comment? If so, please try to keep it to 3 minutes. Your name and how you are associated with the city would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, seeing no one coming forward, we'll close public comment at 7:24. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and we are adjourned.